I have spoken enough about the Queen on this channel, but I'm afraid the Queen is not enough to understand when we speak fast. Or should I say, naturally. It's now time to talk again about the King of Portuguese. If you're frustrated with your progress in understanding fast-speaking Portuguese natives, look no further. The King will bring light to the auditory darkness you may be in. Olá, eu sou Catarina, I'm a Portuguese polyglot, and here at the Language Unschool, I help you find your voice in European Portuguese. Before we dive into the role of the king, let's talk about the queen. So, in essence, that's my name for the stressed syllable, meaning every word in Portuguese has one syllable that is going to be more audible than the rest. Normally, that's the penultimate syllable. There are exceptions, and for the whole explanation of this and other things I'm going to be talking about today, check my free No Cinderella European Portuguese pronunciation guide in the description. If a word in Portuguese has one queen, and maybe it's one queen alone, but if there are more syllables, what do we call them? Now, naturally, we call them the mistresses, meaning we see them, we know they're there, we don't talk about them. You see what I'm doing here? I'm talking about in writing, you're going to see so many syllables. But when you hear Portuguese being spoken, you're not going to hear the mistresses because no one is going to say them. Simple as that. No one talks about them. No one says them. So what is the king exactly? The king, it could be something as a whole clause. But today I want to talk about the king as a combination of words. Because let's face it, you can have flashcards of your first 1,000 words in Portuguese, and you have audio played by a native speaker, and that's fine. You recognize the word, you know the meaning, parabéns. But then, can you actually recognize the word in context, in a full sentence, spoken by a native? So back to my metaphor, every time the king will make an appearance, he's going to bring one message, one tiny bit of information. Each time he shows up, he carries with him a few words, at least two, but probably more. As you know, each one of those words will have one queen and possibly a few mistresses. The king, however, is not bothered about what the queen has to say in each of the words. He's just piling it all up, combining all those words to bring one message, a part of the message. And that's why, even though there is more than one queen in that message, you will only hear one, because the king is bringing focus to one part of the message. Now, let's look at examples. Amanhã de manhã. If I'm going to say this very robotically, you're going to hear amanhã de manhã. But what you actually hear is amanhã de manhã. Amanhã de manhã. You essentially only the last queen, that last syllable of manhã, is going to be audible. Amanhã de manhã. Amanhã de manhã. This one includes a word that is obviously very common, but people really struggle hearing it. And here you will struggle even more because the king is not bothered about it. That combination of words is going to converge to the end. Hoje em dia. Hoje em dia. So, o is the queen of the first word, hoje. But the king just packs this information in such a way, you simply have to train your ears to hear the whole thing together. Hoje em dia. Hoje em dia. Now, another one with hoje, hoje de manhã. Hoje de manhã. Maybe with the hoje, what you're hearing is the je sound in there, but you hear manhã much better, and certainly the end of manhã. Hoje de manhã. And the de, I would bet some money that you probably didn't hear it. And that's precisely when you need to rely on grammar, spelling rules to help you then rewind, go back and listen. You don't have to rewind now, I'll do it for you. Hoje de manhã. One suggestion is play this bit of the video, put it into 0.5 speed, and see if you can hear the d in it. Hoje de manhã. Não me esqueci. Não me esqueci. Não me esqueci. So the queen in esqueci is actually going to be at the end in the last syllable, and that's probably what you can hear best. Não me esqueci. Não me esqueci. I don't have to stop or divorce the word noun from the me, because we hear a nasal sound, which is enough to understand that I did not forget. Plus, the me comes before esqueci. If I had said, I forgot, then esqueci-me, the me would have come at the end. But that's, again, another grammatical rule that would have helped you here. Não me esqueci. Now, probably the two most famous words that people struggle hearing Portuguese, avó and avô. There's a trick here to see if you're hearing grandmother or grandfather. So first let's hear both of them. A minha avó, o meu avô. A minha avó, o meu avô. If you cannot hear the difference between o and o, you have help because the words don't come in isolation. Most likely people are going to be talking about my grandfather and my grandmother. And that means you're going to have a minha before avó or o meu. A minha, o meu. And that's probably slightly easier to hear. But depending how old you are, it's more likely going to be talking about your mother. So, a minha mãe. A minha mãe. Hard to hear, yes. But you know, mãe is a woman, so you need minha as a possessive pronoun. And because there's a possessive pronoun, you know you need a definite article, and it's feminine for reasons already explained. A minha mãe. A minha mãe. And that comes as a pack. And if you're clueless, but you could hear, imagine it would be a whole sentence and you understood mãe, and you were in a position of going back, rewinding, right? You go, oh, maybe the person is saying my mother. So let me go back and see if I can hear a minha. There you go. Helping my unschoolers improve their listening skills really is my specialty, and I give them tons of tools to do so. But I'm curious, what do you do to work on improving your listening comprehension in Portuguese? Let me know in the comments. Okay, this is an interesting one. Já te disse isso. Já te disse isso. Here it's all squished together. So you hear the já te disse isso. And that's really the focus of this chunk. Já te disse isso. The rest goes like, and you probably cannot hear the t because the final e is not going to be pronounced again. Remember, my free pronunciation guide is in the description to explain that. And the t and the d basically are consonants that are pronounced exactly the same way. The difference is one will have a vibration in your vocal cords, the other you will not have. So it's really easy to mix them up when you're hearing naturally spoken Portuguese. Já te disse isso. Tanto agora. What's happening here, the words really get pronounced together because you do have that final O in portanto, and the final O is usually pronounced more as a U, but it's not emphasized. It can be very soft, and because the following word starts with a vowel, we can simply marry the two words. Portanto agora, and you hear that go. Portanto, you hardly hear it. Portanto agora, you hear the brrr, and then the rest, right? Eu gosto de. Another example that a D followed by a mute E and then a T, you're just not going to hear the D. But again, gostar de is one of the first verbs you learn in Portuguese, and you know that it has to be followed by de. So you cannot hear it, but you know it has to be there. So rewind and go, eu gosto de ti, eu gosto de ti. I don't have to pronounce it very well, clearly. It's because I know it's there. But I did say it, only ever so slightly. And probably the easiest way for you to understand this concept of the king is if you look at question words. Donde que ele é? Donde que ele é? Donde que ele é? De onde é que ele é? Donde que ele é? There's basically a bunch of E's that are mute at the end of words. So we're just going to marry them all together. So if you're expecting to hear de onde é que ele é, forget it. It's not going to happen. The king is in a hurry and he's just packing it all together. Donde que ele é? I hope this has helped you a bit understanding how we speak, why we squish words together, and giving you some practical examples, but there are more in my No Cinderella European Portuguese pronunciation guide in the description for you to continue practicing and training your ears. And don't forget to continue immersing yourself in native content, especially if it comes with subtitles, because then you can pause, rewind, and see if you can listen it better. Change the speed on YouTube. Possibilities are endless. Até a próxima!